All right, Michael, let's talk about these liquor restrictions or conditions. What's your problems with them?
Well, there's a problem in Newcastle with the revitalisation of the city when we have a system that puts a one-size-fits-all approach to liquor licensing. So whether that's the big beer barn pubs or the small venues, we've got conditions that are being applied across the board, and that's a problem. We need small bars in Newcastle. We need small venues to provide those diverse opportunities for people to go out and enjoy the night of Newcastle, and to do it in a way that brings money and people into the city. And the more people in the city, the safer it is.
How important are these small bars for CBD's revitalisation?
Small bars and small venues are one part of the picture in revitalising Newcastle, and they're essential. We look to Melbourne and the experience in Melbourne and how that experience has revitalised the city. That's what we want in Newcastle.
So Melbourne, that look in Melbourne, that feel in Melbourne, that's where you think Newcastle should be heading?
Yeah, Newcastle can be as... sorry,
No, that's okay. Yeah, Melbourne, is that the kind of look we should be aiming for, you think?
Yeah, Newcastle can be every bit as much like Melbourne as any other city in the world. And a couple of years ago we were voted in the top 10 cities in the world to come and visit, and that's where we want to be, and we need small bars and small venues to help in that process.
Okay. Do you think it needs to go as far as having a separate set of licence conditions for smaller venues, or do you think it should just be about local government supporting these venues a little bit more?
Yeah, I think there's two issues there. One is that the current liquor accord in Newcastle is dominated by the big players, and they have their own issues that need to be addressed in that way. But small bars and small venues have different issues, and they need to be addressed in a separate liquor accord. I'm also calling on the state government to devolve the system of liquor licensing in this state so that local councils can have the power to apply and provide liquor licences across the board, and in that way we can coordinate the planning and development decisions of the city, the revitalisation of the city, the public domain works that are needed in this city, as well as the liquor licensing.
What are you hearing from these small bar owners?
Yeah, many of the small bar owners are saying how hard it is to get a liquor licence, and how those...
Yes, so sorry, what are the small bar owners saying to you?
Well, small bar owners are telling me how hard it is to get a liquor licence, and how the conditions that are being placed on those licences are making it hard to run a small business. We need to be encouraging those small businesses across this city rather than making it hard for them.
That's all I need.
Do you think the Newcastle solution has gone too far and now it's having an effect on these smaller bars?
Yeah, I think the application of the Newcastle solution across the board is a problem. At the time, the Newcastle solution, when it was applied to the big pubs and the big venues, was appropriate. But now what we're getting is a blanket one-size-fits-all approach, and that's actually stifling revitalisation.
I know the licensee at the Terrace Bar has said that having that security on all night is an issue for them. Do you think that there shouldn't be security guards at small venues?
I think small venues need to make that decision for themselves on a case-by-case basis. If we had a separate small venues liquor accord, then those small venue owners could get in the room and make those decisions and discussions, and maybe they could work collaboratively and share security if needed.
That's all I need. Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Everyone happy with that?
All good?
Nice. Good job. Yeah. Do you want a picture of Adam as well?
Yeah.
Yep. Come and stand. G'day. Adam, do you want to have a look? Yeah. All good. No. We don't do that sort of stuff. It detracts from the message.
Got to say that Newcastle is better than Melbourne.
Way to go. It's great to be here in Newcastle. I've just spent an hour looking at the uni and seeing some amazing developments in printable solar cells and solar paint. You'll soon be able to paint the side of your house with a paint and run an extension cord into it and power your own house if this technology gets up and running. And with printable solar cells, there will be no need to, when you put corrugated iron on your roof, to put a solar panel on your roof, because you'll be able to print the solar straight onto the corrugated iron. And they're running this at the moment through ordinary industrial printers, and this kind of advanced manufacturing that's happening right here in this city is world-leading technology. And as we're looking to diversify the local economy and Australia's economy into the future, what could be better than to be able to print your own power being made right here in Newcastle? So it's extraordinarily exciting. And I'm also here today to have a bit of to find out what we can learn for Melbourne from some of the really amazing initiatives that have been going here for some time, particularly the Renew Newcastle project that's been going on. We're actually looking at rolling that out in parts of Melbourne now, where we've got streets that have got lots of empty shops in them. We're now going to pick up the model that you've been using here and use it to help small and micro businesses. One of the things that we've learned in Melbourne over many, many years is that if you make your city operate at the human scale and support small bars and small enterprises, you really put the city on the map. Small bars have put Melbourne on the map, and I think they can do the same for Newcastle as well. Small bars don't cause violence. That is one thing that we have learned over many, many years. The big problems that we've had in the city have been from large-scale beer barns that fuel people up with cheap alcohol and then turf them out onto the street in the middle of the night with no way of getting home, and that's how a lot of the problems start. Small bars, by contrast, are very, very safe, and they encourage people to drink in moderation. And you sit down and you have a glass of wine or two after you've been out to see a movie, and it makes the city come alive and it makes the city feel safe. If you treat small bars the same as big establishments and try for a one-size-fits-all approach, you will kill small bars. There has to be an understanding that small bars don't cause violence and are a great place for people to gather and feel at home in the city. And when there's more people around late at night, just having a nice time, perhaps catching up after a movie, everyone else feels safer as well. And if there's one lesson that we hope that you pick up and learn from us in Melbourne, it's that people will come from across the country and in fact across the world to visit a place where they feel at home, where they feel safe, and where you can go out and have a quiet drink and not feel like you're in a beer barn being looked over by security guards. And that's one of the things that I hope that we can preserve here in Newcastle. And there is a golden opportunity that people have at the upcoming by-election to say we want to diversify the local economy and to, especially to secure the nighttime economy here. And the best way that you're going to be able to do that is by voting Green.
Yes. Adam, obviously, you know, small bars do need to have restrictions as well. Where do you want to draw the line there with you know, the bigger licensed venues versus the smaller ones?
Well, with the bigger licensed venues, when you've got lots of people together, often open late at night, drinking a lot of alcohol, there are big safety concerns, and we know that, and it's right that in those big places they should be required to have security guards and other measures there. But it's not practical to impose that on the smaller bars, and it's not needed. You need to have a horses for courses approach and to say, look, these small places where security risks are very low, what's the need for requiring them to go to the additional cost of putting on security guards, for example? So have a look at what is going to work for the local area, what's going to suit the local residents, and what's going to keep the area safe. Perhaps all the small bars could pull together and share their own security. Perhaps for some small bars, if they choose not to stay open that late, they don't need security at all. It's really got to be a horses for courses approach.
Has the growth of small bars in Melbourne been organic, or had there been, you know, specific policies that have been put in place in Victoria, and could they work here? If what are they?
It actually started almost by accident. When the new casino came into town, it didn't want to have one licence for all its operations. It had lots of bars in the casino, and it wanted to have a separate licence for each of them. And so in the mid-90s, Melbourne changed the rules and said that you no longer need to have a kitchen attached to every bar, and small bars that don't want to serve food can be, with small patronage, can be open with much fewer restrictions than the bigger places. And that just led to an explosion of smaller operations in the city, that the council then nurtured. And the council said, we are not going to regulate you out of existence. We are going to make sure that the framework stays in place so that you can keep going. And a couple of years ago, the state government had a look at imposing a lockout across the city of Melbourne. And what they found was that if they did that, it would crush the small bars. And perhaps there was a case for doing it for the bigger ones, but not for the smaller ones. And the state government backed off and didn't impose the lockout because it knew it would disproportionately hurt the smaller places. We've also had planning laws in place that make it much easier and in fact require a lot of street frontage to continue. And that's meant that there's a lot of smaller places right on the street that are now open, and we opened up our laneways as well. And all of those things, when you put them together, with a bit of trust in people that they're going to do the right thing, has seen the music scene and the small bar scene proliferate, and I think it's a pretty good template.
Newcastle has a lockout system, and obviously the state government has come down, really harshly in Sydney in implementing its lockout there. Is it too late for this kind of plan in Newcastle?
It's never too late, and the people want to have alternatives to the bigger places to go out, and people power will ultimately win out. And the question is whether or not state governments are going to help deliver what people want. And if you had, for example, a different accord that perhaps only applied to the small places, that had different sets of rules from the bigger ones, that could ensure it would thrive. I don't think it's too late at all.
Guys, can I get the two of you over here now, just addressing everybody, just so I can get some shots of everyone chatting? But you're sort of talking to everyone, like you're addressing them, like, hi everyone, how you going?
I just got a tweet from Marcus Westbury, who's listening to say hello. So, does everyone knows Marcus?
Yes.
Yeah, great. How are you all feeling about the by-election? You have a good feeling? Yeah, good. Excellent. It's a real opportunity for us. I'm really, really pleased to get the invite to come on down.
Well, it's a great thing that Adam can come up here and see Newcastle. I don't know how many times you've visited, but as well. And I'm glad that he could come up and actually address this issue, because I think Melbourne is a bit of a case study in how it can be done and how it could work, especially small bars and small venues working with local residents on a case-by-case basis to make it work and get the right situation. And I don't think there's many people who would think that having two separate accords, one for the larger venues and one for the smaller venues, is a bad idea. And yet, why hasn't the state government already brought that in? So that's something that we'd like to see, two separate accords, so that we can address issues in two separate ways, because there are, different circumstances, I think, from, this small bar behind me here compared to, I don't want to point out particular venues, but some of the big hotels that we all know about and know the incidents that occur at those places. I'd like to invite Chris up to speak. Chris, as many of you would know, is the manager or former manager, owner of the Terrace Bar. But I think it's appropriate that Chris say a few words based on his experience at the Terrace Bar and what he's found in the more than 2 years now that you've been operating. And so,
okay. All right. Thank you. I'm not much of a public speaker. I'm more of an essay writer and report writer. So I've written a report on the nighttime economy of Newcastle and my experience as an active participant of it over the last 24 months. And I'm here today to present that to you. On the 22nd of June 2012, I opened the Terrace Bar on Hunter Street, Newcastle, and effectively kick-started the movement of small bars and licensed restaurants in the CBD of the past 24 months. As of the 7th of October of 2014, I have formally closed the Terrace Bar in protest of licence conditions put in place by the New South Wales Police, New South Wales State Government and Newcastle City Council that stifle my safe venue that is doing the right things for the right reasons, while the above continue to table plans and policies for the revitalisation of Newcastle that do not account for nor support the small businesses who are already driving the city in the direction that they want for it. The City of Newcastle and the New South Wales State Government have continually addressed issues regarding A, controls regarding the sale and supply of liquor and the creation of a safer nighttime economy. And B, the revitalisation of Newcastle and the desire to develop Hunter Street from the Mall to the West End. Currently, the City and State have provided majority funding towards measures for revitalisation to A, increase investor confidence by the announcement of works regarding new developments and infrastructural changes which will stimulate the local economy and revitalise the city. And B, strategies to move towards a future of small bars and away from booze barns by the changes in the Liquor Act on the state level from 2007 onwards, and the Newcastle City Council's current LEPs and DCPs and other literature and reports regarding the nighttime economy. The New South Wales State Government and New South Wales Licensing Police, and to a lesser degree the Newcastle City Council, are currently stifling small business and the organic revitalisation of Newcastle by placing conditions on liquor licences that limit the trade and supply by small businesses by small business owners in different areas of their licensed premises and of different products after certain hours. Despite that the Terrace Bar is a popular and seemingly thriving business, my staff are unable to make a living from the hours I can give them, nor can I make a livable wage for the hours that I work myself due to 3 reasons. A, I am required to close my most popular area due to noise complaints at 10 p.m. nightly, which may arise from developments that have not yet been built in this city. There are currently less than 10 residential occupants neighbouring the premises, many of whom enjoy a drink at the terrace and support later opening hours of the rooftop terrace. After 10 p.m. nightly, I lose half my crowd. B, I am required to close my premises at midnight nightly. Newcastle drinks late and generally only on the weekends, so we're always busy again by 11 p.m, but have to return our safe and sensible customers to the street or to the existing booze barn venues after midnight due to trading hour restrictions. C, under current licence conditions, I am required to pay a licensed security guard, Ben, who is here today, and who is the greatest security guard in Newcastle and responsible for much of our success in creating a safe venue. But unfortunately, as a security guard and as an owner-operator, I have to pay him, and it brings my break-even point to $1,250 nightly, which would essentially require me to run a student night to justify the risk of opening on Wednesdays. Since opening the Terrace Bar in June 2012, A, we have traded for over 2 years without a single incident of alcohol-related violence. B, approximately 10 smaller bars and licensed restaurants opened in the wake from 2013 onwards, and the majority of which have now traded for over 12 months, also without a single violent incident. In 2014, this year, I applied to change the condition on my licence that requires me to have a security guard on the door after 8 p.m. on Wednesdays, Fridays and Saturdays so that I might be able to afford to open on Wednesday nights. I am not currently open on Wednesdays for this reason. The New South Wales Licensing Police contacted me regarding my application, saying that they would support the change of condition so long as I consented to having 7 new conditions being added to my licence, which would further limit the sale of products after 10 p.m, including all cocktails. They then informed me that should I not consent to the conditions, they would withdraw support of my application and forward the conditions to the authority to be added to the licence anyway. When I questioned the licensing police about this decision, they informed me that A, these conditions were tabled out of the Newcastle solution in 2008 to be applied to the top 14 violent and late trading venues in Newcastle who were currently trading to 5 a.m. and collectively contributing to the bulk of alcohol-related violence. B, since these conditions have been added to every licence that has been granted, including all small bars and licensed restaurants, including the condition that disallows any licensed venue in Newcastle to serve cocktails after 10 p.m. C, that I did agree to these conditions being added to the licence originally. However, I made these agreements during the community impact statement process in 2011, and at this time, prior to the opening of the terrace, I was happy to accept any conditions so long as I would be able to eventually receive a liquor licence, something that was considered near impossible until the opening of the Terrace Bar and the huge movement in Newcastle's small bar and licensed restaurant economy that followed. D, that the conditions were not added to the licence originally due to an administrative error, but E, I'm not special and they're not going to change the rules for me and are unwilling to discuss the matter further. According to internal reports from the state government, the Newcastle solution has had the effect of curbing violence through an overall decrease in assaults totalling approximately 37%. Essentially, this means that A, 63% of the assaults are still happening in or outside of the existing late trading pubs and clubs commonly referred to as booze barns, for whom the Newcastle solution was tabled for, but who are still able to trade past midnight and to a latest closing time of 3 a.m, whilst B, small bars and licensed restaurants, who contribute to 0% of assaults, are forced to trade under the same restrictions of the Newcastle solution, including the ban on selling cocktails or unmixed spirits after 10 p.m, as well as being required to close at a latest time of 12 a.m. midnight, despite their proven track records in RSA and creating a safe, cultural and diverse option in the nighttime economy. With the number of conditions on the Terrace Bar's licence currently, the prohibition of the service of one of our primary products, cocktails, from 10 p.m. would effectively crush my business. This is not only due to the current number of already stifling conditions on this and all of my competitors' licences, but also the sheer amount of competitors who have popped up in the scene in the last 12 months, who are all competing for a share of the same socio-economic demographic of people who can both afford and are educated in cocktails, which is currently small and only until 10 p.m. And as all small bars and licensed restaurants in Newcastle are currently all subject to the same trading hours of until midnight only, and with the New South Wales licensing police putting conditions on every licence in this town that outlaws the sale of cocktails after 10 p.m, a shortage of work has arisen in this city for skilled bar staff who can make a perfect martini, discuss the complexities of a single malt, explain to you the history of the India Pale Ale brewing style, or tell you where to find the good Semillon in the Hunter. In the past year alone, I have had 5 bar staff relocate out of Newcastle, 4 of whom to Melbourne, to find employment in a city that safely drinks and socialises across a broader, fairer spectrum of hours, allowing the full-time employment of professional mixologists and also allowing them the right to have a drink after they knock off work themselves. And personally, as a small business owner operator and also as a single parent, the return I can make on the hours required to run a hospitality business are increasingly unattractive compared to what I could be doing with my university education. I have raised the issue of fighting these conditions, especially the condition regarding the sale of cocktails after 10 p.m, with a number of other small bar and licensed restaurant owners. Many of them are here today and are supporting me in this move. But some have informed me that I simply need to wear the conditions and then look after the police and they'll turn the other way. I don't know what this means, but having closely followed the recent ICAC hearings, I wouldn't be surprised if it looks like what it sounds like. Parts of this small business community are certainly selling cocktails after 10 p.m. in breakage of their liquor licences, but why the fuck shouldn't they be? And why should we have to either deny our right to carry out our businesses or deny our educated customers their right to discretion regarding what alcohol and in what proportions they consume and at what hours? This is not about dobbing people in for breaking the law. These conditions are anti-competitive and are the dystopian end of creating a police state or nanny state that is effectively denying everyone of their rights due to the mistakes of a few, and also stifling the organic unfolding of a diverse nighttime economy for a functional and fun city that can provide jobs to its citizens and a high quality of life. Most of our society today demands us to be provided with goods and services around the clock 24/7. But for this to be facilitated, some people are required to live and work on different schedules to the majority, and is just another of the reasons why blanket solutions on trading hours do not work, because it means the city cannot allow all of its citizens the same options for diversity and quality of life, and punishes them for playing their necessary role in the economy as shift workers. Moving to Melbourne myself sounds more and more like an option these days. The last time I was in Melbourne on business, I sat at a rooftop bar at 4 a.m. drinking a cocktail, and no one was getting bashed or glassed. But in Newcastle, as a bar owner, I'm expected to live in a city that does not even respect my right to have a drink after work or give me a chance to socialise. I knock off at midnight, so for me to have a drink after work in the CBD, I'm required to rush to enter one of the small handful of massive booze barns after closing and cleaning before the overall lockout kicks in. If I'm able to find a quality bottle of spirits behind the bar of one of these establishments, I may have it served to me in a plastic 7-ounce cup, so long as it's with a soft drink. I may have it I will have to listen to music I'm not interested in at a volume that will not allow conversation, and be surrounded by a culture of dangerous, steroid-fueled male archetypes that are perpetuated and reinforced by such venues, and I will be putting myself in danger. That the booze barns have lockouts and mandatory closing times does not change the fact that I still do not feel safe in them. However, if I don't feel safe in them, I'll have to leave and go straight home, as the lockouts deny people of options and allow for further monopoly-style power for big businesses who care more about their bottom lines than the safety of their communities. If I lived in Sydney or Melbourne, I wouldn't have this issue. My city would allow me the right to drink a quality beverage in a safe establishment of my choice, despite the fact that I knock off work at midnight. The Newcastle solution may have decreased the overall number of assaults, but it does not change the fact that Newcastle's unsafe venues are still unsafe, and nothing is being done about this fact. While droves of smaller, more culturally focused venues with 100% proven track records in safety and higher staff-to-patient ratios are forced to trade under unfair and inequitable conditions designed to punish those who are causing harm. And additionally, we're expected to close up our safe establishments early, while leaving all the power and all the trading hours and all the fun to be had in the hands of the violent booze barns that have always and continue to bring this city not just undesirable headlines, but real and serious incidents of grievous bodily harm and even death through their irresponsibility in operating their businesses. The people of Newcastle have known for a very long time that something is wrong in this city, but have never understood to whom they must ask questions and demand answers. Through ICAC, we've slowly become privy to the clever tricks that property developers have pulled to make the people of this city believe that the council is to blame for the state of the buildings that they themselves bought up cheap, then boarded up and left to rot. Then they sit back comfortably on negative gearing in wait of either a friend to pay into politics who might overturn some of the heritage or height laws, or for vandals and drug addicts to break into the buildings and burn them out or turn them into knockdowns so their development potential can be maximised. Similarly, the decision makers and controllers of liquor in Newcastle have cleverly remained ambiguous, while the public understanding of the power distribution regarding liquor is limited, if not completely confused, leaving the people crying out to a council that essentially does not have the authority to do anything about these issues. Liquor in New South Wales is governed and controlled on the state level by the state government's Office of Liquor, Gaming and Racing, the authority of whom determines the outcomes of liquor licence applications. The Newcastle City Council can make submissions regarding applications, however these submissions can be overridden by the state, so the council's power is limited to suggestion and whatever can be included in a development application. Essentially, the council can tell you that you cannot put a bar in a building that is not zoned to be a bar, but they cannot and do not grant or place conditions on liquor licences. The two governors of liquor on a local level are not the council, but the New South Wales Licensing Police, which consists of a handful of police officers in Waratah, delegated authority by the state, who have no interest or understanding in my business or the products that I sell. And the Newcastle Liquor Record, a body largely comprised two of Newcastle's biggest offenders, King Street Hotel and Fanny's, now known as the Argyle House. We have allowed this handful of people the power to control Newcastle for too long. The Newcastle Liquor Record and the Newcastle Licensing Police have proven to have no interest in culture, safety and the sale of quality products, nor have they stood up for this city's honest small business owners who are doing the right things for the right reasons and creating safe alternatives. Instead, they continue to directly or indirectly stifle our businesses and put anti-competitive conditions in place, such as the prohibition of cocktails after 10 p.m, while continually failing to really address the harm that they are collectively perpetuating and reinforcing in this city. Allowing the police to have too much control over the nighttime economy is always going to be bad for the economy because they don't know or care about alcohol. They just have prohibitionist attitudes and see everything in black and white. If they really wanted to, they would have stung Jesus for a fine for turning water into wine when the party was still in full swing but the bar was looking closed. They openly refuse to accept the social, cultural and natural necessity of people consuming alcohol, a practice that goes back as far as recorded history can tell. And expecting my business to work alongside the existing liquor accord is like forcing an independent local organic grocer to be an active participant in a controlling sub-governmental department designed to target obesity and poor health, and then putting the owner of McDonald's in charge. A new arm for representation must be established. I am suggesting an alternative accord that can represent safe venues. This could be made up of the licensees of small bars, general bars, licensed restaurants and community-oriented clubs who are working towards a better, safer, more diverse Newcastle in lines with the aims of its representatives from council, state government and police, who will be members to work actively with the licensees who are doing the right things for the right reasons. And on a policy level, many of these deficiencies can and must be addressed by the politicians running in the state by-election. Finally, as a city, we must hold our state government accountable to ensure that they are representing our interests as a city and that they are working for us and with us and not against us. The following set of demands must be met and the following recommendations must be brought to discussion before the respective powers concerned before I will reconsider opening the Terrace Bar. Until such a point, investor confidence is set to decrease in Newcastle, as the message I am sending is effectively that it is impossible currently to survive as a small bar in Newcastle. The demands are institutionalisation of a new collective voice of small, safe and community-oriented venues via a new liquor accord to cover small bars, general bars, licensed restaurants and community-oriented clubs. Full representation from above liquor accord and removal of licence conditions that require licensees to be parts of existing liquor accords that are largely made up of and headed by the licensees of Newcastle's late trading problem venues who are focused on their bottom line at the expense of the community. Active representation from the New South Wales State Government and Newcastle City Council in the new accord, and support for licensees in negotiating with the New South Wales Licensing Police regarding conditions that are being added to their licences. Removal of the condition from my licence and approval of the DA allowing my outdoor area the same trading hours as my indoor areas. Removal of the condition regarding a security guard on Wednesday, Friday and Saturday nights without the addition of any new licence conditions. And written support from council and local state government representatives in the application to increase the overall trading hours of the Terrace Bar. My recommendations are a decrease in the licensing control over small bars, general bars, licensed restaurants and clubs who have proven to be community-oriented safe spaces that are free of violence. Cessation of the application of unnecessary prohibition upon small businesses and clubs that have proven to be such community-oriented safe spaces and are free of violence. Study of measures that have been taken by other cities to start and stimulate a diverse and safe nighttime economy, and application of measures that are focused on supporting Newcastle's existing and struggling players in the nighttime economy with proven track records in safety and aims in line with the larger community's plans for a revitalised Newcastle, rather than on making it easier for new players to come into a market that has not developed quickly enough to support its existing players under the current conditions on those businesses. An increase in trading hours for licensees following a probation period of safe trading for the purpose of providing a diverse late night economy that is currently monopolised by booze barns and nightclubs and does not provide options for shift workers or other everyday people interested in a night out past midnight. Decrease in trading hours and increase in licensing control over repeat offender venues and have them operate under the hours and conditions that small bars are forced to trade under currently until they can prove that they have dealt with their violence issues. Removal of all anti-competitive conditions which negatively affect the ability of struggling small hospitality businesses to trade in certain areas of their premises or at certain times of their businesses, allowing licensees and staff who have proven track records in responsible service of alcohol to continue to exercise their own discretion more over the sale of products rather than having all conditions dictated by the state, effectively allowing for more diversity and a stronger nighttime economy and stronger hospitality industry. From the council, I just don't know why I pay $4,000 a year in rates and I don't get a single bin. Like, you could really give out recycling bins to hospitality businesses, because it's cheaper for us to put things in landfill than to pay for our own recycling. That's one thing that needs to be dealt with by the council. And the recognition of the importance of social consumption and supply of liquor throughout history, from the ancient Greeks who founded the frameworks of modern society, to Jesus who turned water into wine, through to the current age when the responsible service of supply of alcohol continues as an important centre point of the community and economy. An active participation across all levels of council and state government to address the structural deficiencies that contribute to Newcastle's antisocial issues that do not arise from licensed venues, issues that small bars and safe venues cannot directly address. These include problems contributing to violence and antisocial behaviour in the lower socioeconomic classes, the monopoly/duopoly market power of bottle shop chains and the big breweries that that contribute to cheaper bottle shop sales and increasingly expensive bar sales and keep people drinking in environments free of the monitoring of RSA trained staff, illicit drugs and how much cheaper it is for young people to use them than to drink at bars, and the real issue behind Newcastle's antisocial problems, the hypermasculinity of Newcastle's violent underbelly at night, not limited to but including the use of steroids. Thank you.
I know Chris has probably said all that needs to be said, but I was wondering if there's any other small bar owners that would like to say a few words. No? It's all
I've
been...
had a conversation with Chris prior to this, but I'm Corey from the grain store, and yeah, totally feel for Chris with the pressure that's being placed upon him, and yeah, jointly we're you know, there's more than just me and him. There's a dozen of us now that will be working together to try and get some fairness and I suppose a bit of balance between what we are and what certain other venues are in the city. So
I think in summary, it's clear that what's needed in Newcastle is the two-tiered approach, a small venue liquor accord where small venue owners and other outlets can come together and can discuss the issues that needs to be discussed, that have different types of regulations between those venues and the big venues, and that also that those venues are part of the solution in Newcastle. They're part of the revitalisation, and we should be encouraging small venues and bars in Newcastle. So thanks for coming, and thanks everyone for speaking. And
If I can just finish off a couple of things listening to that speech. There's and come back to your question before, in recent history they've tried twice in Melbourne to do things that would have been decimating for small bars and live music venues. The first, as I referred to before, was they tried to impose a lockout system that would have meant that it would have worked in favour of the bigger bars, and the small bars who rely on people, chefs who finish up their shift who then want to drink before they go home at night, would have had nowhere to go and wouldn't have been allowed in. And so we saw a demonstration in Melbourne of about 7,000 people at 7 o'clock on a Friday night, not a usual time for a demonstration, but it fired everyone up before they went out and had a drink that evening. And that we beat off the government with that proposal. The second was one where they wanted to treat small live music venues the same as bigger beer barns and require them to have round-the-clock security guards whenever they were open. And so a small bar that might have been the home to the next up-and-coming band or a place where they were going to practice that might have only seated 20 people was going to be required to have security guards as well. And as excellent as security guards are, including the ones that you've got here, some places just couldn't afford them and there wasn't a proven case for it. And that was going to crush the live music scene in Melbourne. And 20,000 people turned out on the streets and ended up at Parliament House in the Save Live Music rally that not only saw that law beaten back and the need for security guards taken away, but saw exactly the kind of accord, the second accord that we're talking about here, get implemented in Melbourne. It actually proved to be a catalyst for the owners and operators of the smaller venues, plus the live music industry, plus the government, plus the police, to sit down and say, look, actually, maybe we got it wrong with our one-size-fits-all approach, and maybe we can negotiate something different. So in answer to the question of is it too late and what have we done differently, like it's far from too late. And I applaud you for taking a stand. I really do. And it's disappointing that it's got to the point where you feel like you have to close and you've got no option. But I think now is a critical time, and with the election coming up, there's the chance to put it on the agenda. And in Melbourne, it wasn't always just the government doing nice things that helped us keep that small bar live music scene. It was actually people power defending it. And so now's the time, especially in the lead up to the election, for all of you to work together with the venues, the places that you want to go and have a drink and want to be able to go to and have a drink late at night. And you know, like Melbourne, I think people power together with the right people in Parliament can help fight it off. So good on you. Thanks very much for having me.